Right now, let's follow up on these findings today with three members of Parliament. From the foyer, we're joined by James Bezan. He's the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence. Jack Harris is the Defence Critic for the official opposition NDP. And Joyce Murray is the Defence Critic for the Liberal Party. So, Mr. Bezan, two military investigations concluding that Sergeant Andrew Dwaron died in a tragic case of mistaken identity. Kurdish fighters at the forward observation post had come on duty, different ones during the day, after the Canadians had been there, weren't told the Canadians were coming back, and that's in large measure what led to the death of Sergeant Dwaron. So I'm guessing, how does your government interpret these findings?
Well, first of all, again, I want to express our condolences to Sergeant Dwaron's family and friends and his colleagues. This was a tragic accident. And as the reports informed us today with General Rouleau, is that this was not at the fault of the Canadian Special Operations Forces, that they conducted themselves professionally, that all the protocols were followed, and unfortunately at checkpoint 7, as he went through the entire events of the day, at 11 o'clock at night at checkpoint number 7 is where there was mistaken identity, and a lot of it had to do with circumstances. It was at night, there was dogs barking, and that there had been a change in the soldiers of the Kurdish Peshmerga who were at checkpoint 7 that night, and unfortunately hadn't been told about the visit of the Canadian Special Operations Forces.
Okay, so is there anything that you've heard today from this, the conclusions of this investigation, that requires any major change in the government's thinking about the value of this mission or how it's being conducted?
Well, we haven't changed our approach in this at all, is that we still believe that the aid and assist and training mission that we have in Iraq, with up to 69 Special Operation Forces members, providing the Peshmerga with the ability to take the fight to ISIL, as well as work with other Iraqi security forces, is one that we're committed to for the next 12 months. And we also know that the Canadian Armed Forces are going to make the appropriate changes to ensure that the risk factor is mitigated, and that includes making sure that when they do night visits near the front, like they did on March the 6th, that they will also at the same time be taking with them a Kurdish Peshmerga operative.
They'll travel with a Kurdish fighter as well. So, okay, Mr. Harris, let me move to you. What's your response to these findings?
Well, first of all, I mean, if the excuse is that it was dark and there were dogs barking, I think it's dark every night. You know, that's not much of an explanation. The reality is they were on the forward edge of the front lines on a defensive position, where the soldiers that were there were expecting fire from the enemy, and that's why they were concerned. And I don't understand how there was a failure to actually have people accompany. What are you doing moving into a defensive position with the Kurds without Kurdish forces accompanying you in the first place? And it just doesn't seem to be an adequate explanation. Yes, we obviously know there was a mistaken identity. They didn't intentionally fire on them, but it seems to me that proper precautions weren't taken. And it's a big shock to us. I mean, we're certainly shocked at the death of Sergeant Dwaron and the injury of the others. But to have that happen on the front lines when we were told that this wasn't going to be what was happening to our soldiers on the ground in Iraq in a training mission, I'm afraid that the explanation really indicates that they were doing things that we weren't expecting to do, that we weren't told they were going to be doing.
Joyce Murray, what's your response to the findings today?
Glad to finally see a report. Mind you, it was almost like a postcard as opposed to a full report that was released today. But until now, all we've had is hearsay and leaks of different ideas from the government side, such as that fatigue was the explanation. So it was good to actually get the story of what happened. The Prime Minister explicitly said that the troops would not be accompanying at the front lines, and so I think he has some explaining to do. How did the mandate change? Who changed the mandate and why? Because this was not just at the front lines. As Jack pointed out, this was our soldiers at the front lines at a time that an attack was expected. So that made it an increased danger that unfortunately led to Sergeant Dwyron's death.
What we do know today, that Brigadier General Rouleau said, Mr. Bezan, today at the news conference, was that he wouldn't get into any greater detail on changes being made or new restrictions being made, except for the one you mentioned and one more. So new restrictions introduced, only moving at night with Kurdish soldiers, so that language doesn't become an issue and the identity issues are mitigated. And movement to forward positions will be the exception, not the rule. So it would seem that the military is saying that, yeah, we're going to try and stay away from those forward positions as much as we can, rather than do a whole lot of the training up there.
Well, first of all, we really do believe that what we're doing when we do go to the front, and we're still 2 kilometers back from the ISIL fighting positions, but when we do go up there, it's still part of command, control, aid and assist training. And we're there because the Peshmerga had faced the battle the day before and had asked for advice. Mm-hmm. And so the Canadians were out earlier that day, had already gone through kind of looking at the tactical operations for the afternoon. But as General Rouleau said in his briefing today, the environment changes at night. And so, yes, definitely these guys were anticipating that they could come under attack, as they had in the previous day and before that. But more importantly, they were there at the request of the Kurdish Peshmerga. And unfortunately, there was a breakdown in communication within the Peshmerga itself. All right. But we need to know, and what was told today is exactly that the Canadian forces had conducted themselves professionally and followed the protocols, not just of the Canadian Armed Forces, but the protocols of all the coalition partners. And it's a proven protocol that they've been using time and time again.
Fair enough. What's also clear today is the protocols have now changed. The protocols have now changed based on this incident. They were following
Well, now they have changed, and it's always, unfortunately, lessons learned from a tragic accident.
Well, what about that, Mr. Harris? Is it fair to look at fail-safes put in place now that hope to mitigate that? Is it fair to do that in hindsight after the incident's happened?
Well, of course they have to do that. We don't want anything like this to happen again. But it's all very well to say that the protocols were followed, so that the idea being that no specific individual Canadian soldier was at fault. But the protocols were clearly inadequate to maintain the safety of our soldiers. They were on the front line where we were told they wouldn't be, and I don't care where the farthest soldiers were from the other side. They were expecting the attack. They were not surprised that they were confronted with what they thought were enemy soldiers. We still haven't resolved this language issue. We said it was said on the It was said very clearly on the one hand that Arabic wasn't spoken until until the medevac.
When the rescue operation started.
But then General Rouleau said that we weren't going to have. We're going to have them accompanied by Peshmerga, so that there won't be a language problem. Well, was there a language problem or was there not? Was there an identity problem or was there not?
Well, I don't want to. No, I'm not. I don't want to make too many assumptions.
But I'm not going to make any assumptions either. But we were told by one of your colleagues in the media that there were plenty of gaps in this report. Really hard to figure out what even was going on.
There's a lot blacked out
because of what was redacted. Wrong. So I don't know why that has to be. This is a training mission. It's not not supposed to be. Well, here's
one of the things, Joyce Mary. Here's to this whole issue of language. Here's one of the interesting things I thought I heard from the news conference today was there was never any when the Canadians were at one of the checkpoints on their way there, and I guess it was the checkpoint 6 on the way to 7, the observation post. The commander at that checkpoint was asked by the Canadians to call ahead, which was yet another layer that Sergeant Dwyron thought to do, to call ahead and let them know, just as a failsafe, the Canadians are coming back. And apparently, according to the news conference today, the commander was seen on the phone, but nobody knew what he was talking about. So there is at this point, there's no absolute confirmation that he called ahead to say the Canadians were coming, so that the Kurdish fighters on the forward operating post there at the line would know the Canadians were coming back. So maybe that's why they'll travel with Kurdish fighters from now on, so that they understand what's being said by other Kurds.
Well, Peter, I don't want to speculate on details that I don't personally know about, but when we are talking about protocols, let's not forget that Canada is the only country that apparently had given the soldiers the mandate to be right at the front lines, engaged in these very risky activities. The United States was not doing that. Our other coalition allies were not doing that because of the risk that it entails. So it's not the case that there was protocols that all the countries were following to deal with the risks of soldiers at the front lines. They simply didn't have their soldiers at the front lines. So I think it's sad that thinking through what's needed to have soldiers safe at the front lines in a situation like that is happening after someone has paid the ultimate price. But let's remember that Canada is the only country that was doing that, and that it was contrary to what Canadians were promised in the first place when the Prime Minister went to Parliament and asked for permission or acceptance for this the Special Forces mission for that time period.
All right, just quick answers here to finish from all of you. Mr. Bezan, start with you. Should this change? We've heard some of the changes from the military today. Should there be any more significant changes into the way that training mission is being conducted, other than those changes we've heard being made by the military today in the light of Sergeant Doiron's death?
Well, we're going to make the changes as already was described by General Rouleau. I think the entire coalition has been informed by this, and definitely, it wasn't just a Canadian investigation, the two different investigations from the Special Operations Forces and from the National Investigative Service of the Canadian Armed Forces that came to the final conclusion. There was also a U.S. independent review that was done as well. The U.S. right now, that report helped inform, and and I can also say that the U.S. will release theirs on their own accord.
Okay.
But I can tell you that we are comfortable with how things have progressed and with the transparency that we saw today. And again, our hats go off to all the members of the Canadian Armed Forces who have played a part in not only defending Canada's interests against the ISIL terrorists, but also that they were able to share this information with us.
Mr. Harris, are the changes we've heard about today going to be enough to make Canadian soldiers safer there?
Well, I don't know if we've heard enough. I mean, this press release was started an hour ago. Mr. Bezan seems to have read all the reports. I certainly haven't. It's going to take a little bit more analysis to see whether we're getting the full story. There's a certain skepticism because of what we were told by the Prime Minister about what we are really doing on the front lines of returning fire and having deaths caused. This is not, we still don't know exactly what our forces are being asked to do on the front lines in Iraq.
Joyce Murray, final comment to you. Are you convinced Canadian soldiers there are as safe as they can be right now?
No, I'm not. And in answer to your question, is the changes in protocol enough? The answer is no. The soldiers should not be accompanying at the front lines, should not be in the combat zone. As the Prime Minister promised last fall, they should be doing the training and assist well back from the front lines in all situations.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for your time tonight in this story, and I appreciate you being with me this evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.